Tages growth and development in governance. The new growth theory offers a fresh take on what engineers economic prosperity. It emphasizes the importance of entrepreneurship, knowledge, innovation, and technology, challenging the view of exogenous growth in neoclassical economics. That economics process is determined by external uncontrollable forces. The environmental movement. The environmental movement sometimes refers to as the economy movement, in a social movement that aims to protect the natural world from harmful environment practices. In order to create sustainable living, environmentalists advocate and just a sustainable management of resources and stewardship of the environment. Through changes in public policy, individual behavior, and its recognition of humanity as a participants in ecosystem. The movement is centered on ecology, health, as well as human rights.
Globalization. So what is globalization? Globalization refers to the interconnectedness and integration of economies, cultures, societies, and technologies across the world. It involves the increasing flow of goods, services, the capital, people, and ideas across borders, facilitated by advancement in communication and transportation or trade. Trade and globalization has both positive and negative impacts, influencing areas such as economies, politics, culture, and in the environment. For example, dito yung social media platforms tulad ng Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter na enable para from different parts of the world to connect and para na rin mag-share ng ideas and para na rin to exchange cultural experience instantly at ito yung nagre-represent ng technological and cultural globalization by facilitating communication and cultural exchange across the borders. Consolidation. This passage discusses the importance of governance in consolidating peace, particularly in nations recovering from conflict. King Gop, Prime Minister of Namibia, emphasized the necessity of involving all stakeholders in the nation building and reconciliation process. The text highlights example from Mali, Uganda, Thailand, Guatemala, and Philippines, where decentralizing governance was deemed crucial for the efforts. It also emphasized the need for capacity building among agency formers and combatants to take on social responsibilities. For example, in conflict affected nation tulad ng Mali and Uganda, decentralizing governance was essential for which requiring capacity building among state agencies and former combatants para i-assume yung social responsibilities.
Policies, issues, concerns, and challenges. The Philippines' constitutional and legal frameworks provide the foundation for governance, allowing public participants and scrutiny of government operations. The country has a promulgate laws, rules, and regulation to establish order and move forward. However, underdevelopment can be attributed to a lack of institutional capacity and performance competences to implement policies and enforce laws. The Philippine public policy making process is precedent-bound, influenced by various forces and constitutions. Many policies have missed out on public consultations, constructive debate, and consensus building. Legislations can be useful for addressing problems but can be complicated and unpredictable. Successful legislations occur when important problems meet solutions deemed highly probable by political parties or groups in power positions. To achieve desirable societal goals and institutionalize reforms, policies should be adopted by the whole government and supported by the stockholders, implemented over several administrations and achieved through adequate and judicious use of resources. Policies should also create a framework for border responsibilities on an institutional basis.
So, Assalamualaikum everyone and good day everyone. So, my topic is problems in the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is a specific form of organization defined by complexity, division of labor, permanence, professional management, hierarchical coordination and control, strict chain of command and legal authority. It is distinguished from informal and collegial organization. In its ideal form, bureaucracy is impersonal and rational and based on rules rather than ties of kinship, friendships, or patrimonial and charismatic authority. Bureaucratic organization can be found in both public and private institutions. So, there are 5 central problems with the implementation of bureaucracy. So, number 1 is red tape. So, ang red tape ay tumutukoy sa mga labis at madalas na hindi kinakailangan mga pamamaraan na kasangkot sa mga transaksyon sa isang organization. So, number 2 is conflict. So, minsan ang mga layunin ng iba't ibang bureaucratic agency ay hindi tumutugma at sila ay nagtatapos sa pagtatrabaho ng magkaibang layunin o nakikipagkompetisyon sila. Number 3 is duplication. So, ang duplication is tumutukoy sa mga sitwasyon kung saan maraming mga kopya o mga pagkakataon ng isang bagay sa isang organization. Ito ay kung saan higit sa isang individual ay maaaring kasangkot sa paggawa ng parehong gawain o paggawa ng mga desisyon tungkol sa isang bagay na walang anumang malinaw na coordination sa pagitan nila. Number 4 is imperialism. So, ang imperialism is nangyayari kapag ang isang group or organization ay nagsisikap na magpataw ng isang tiyak na paraan ng mga pag-iisip, pag-uugali at paniniwala sa ibang grupo. Number 5 is waste. So, ang basura ay anumang bagay sa negosyo na hindi umaantong sa ninanais na resulta. Ang mga negosyo ay nag-aaksaya ng pera at mga mapagkukunan sa pamamagitan ng mga inefficiencies. Hindi mahusay na mga mahinang serbisyo sa customer. So, maaaring mangyayari ang basura sa maraming kadahilanan kabilang ang oras na ginugol dahil sa mga likas na problema ng bureaucracy mismo.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmate. Our topic today is all about corruption. Corruption hampers the development process in numerous ways. It diminishes public trust in public institutions, reinforces harmful power dynamic, and exacerbates poverty by depriving disadvantaged sector of necessary programs in environmental stewardship. Political corruption, a form of corruption involving the misuse of power by government officials for a personal gain, is particularly damaging. Can take two forms: accumulation and extraction, where officials employ their power to extract resources for various sectors, and power preservation, where extracted resources are used to maintain and extend political power, often through favoritism and patronage politics. This corruption can negatively impact governance and development.
Common forms of corruption. We have here the bribery. In the context of political corruption, a bribe may involve a payment given to a government official in exchange of his use of official powers. So, for example, may na-violate ka or may violation ka at yung violation na yun ay nakalabag ka ng traffic violation. So, ang gagawin mo is babayaran mo yung isang public officer na nakahuli sa'yo. Kumbaga, susuhulan mo siya. So, sa madaling salita is, once na ang isang public officer ay tumanggap ng suhol, nakapag-commit na siya ng bribery, which is kasali sa common forms of corruption. Next one is extortion, the act of obtaining property from another individual by wrongful use of actual or threatened force, violence, or fear, or under color of official right. So, sa extortion is halimbawa sa government natin or yung mga public officer humihingi ng pera o mahalagang bagay kapalit ng serbisyong gagawin nila sa iyo. Like for example is kukuha sila ng halimbawa may kukunin kang clearance or ibang documents na kakailanganin mo. And then ang gagawin nila is hihingi sila ng pera para sasabihin nila na para mabilis ang galaw ganun, magbibigay ka ng pera. So, yun yung extortion. Or minsan pa is mamba-blackmail sila. Sa madaling salita, pamba-blackmail ang gagawin nila. Sunod naman is cronyism and nepotism. Favoring relatives or personal friends of an official is a form of illegitimate private gain. Dito naman sa cronyism is, halimbawa nag-work ka sa government and then may vacant position na available. Tapos, ang kukunin mo lang is yung mga kakilala or friends mo. While sa nepotism naman is, yung mga relatives mo naman ang kinukuha mo kahit na hindi naman sila qualified para sa position na yun or sa vacant position na yun. Parochialism. Parochialism is also known as parish pump politics, which relates to placing local or vanity projects ahead of the national interest. Parochialism is related to corruption kasi nga sa shared identity lang sila nakikipag-associate. So, circle lang nila is yung mga tumatanggap lang din ng suhol. So, parang may same pinagsama lang din sila dun sa bribery. Mga public officer na tumatanggap ng suhol. And also, meron na tayong kasabihan na birds of the same feather flocks together. Next one is the patronage. Patronage refers to favoring supporters, for example, with a government employment. This may be illegitimate as well as A newly elected government changes the top officials in the administration in order to effectively implement its policy. So, in patronage is ang halimbawa sa election, yung pag-vote mo sa isang kandidato is hindi na siya based sa qualification niya para sa position na yon. Pagkos dahil na sa isang public officer na nagsabi sa iyo o kumbaga meron kang utang na loob sa isang tao na yon, kaya mo siya iboboto. At saka, di ka na boboto for your will bagkos boboto ka dahil sa sinabi sa'yo na yun ang iboto mo. So, dahil dun, hindi tayo magkakaroon ng maganda o maayos na gobyerno kung ang basehan lang natin ng pagpili is dahil sa sinabi or sa laki ng binibigay sa yung pera. Kaya mo pinili yung kandidato na yun. Kumbaga, yung pag-vote mo is no longer based sa qualification ng isang kandidato. So, yung pag-vote mo is nagiging blind selection na siya. Dahil sa meron kang utang na loob sa isang, kumbaga, the word patron is ibig sabihin parang may boss ka na, or kaya may utang na loob ko sa isang tao na nag-work sa public officer, and then to return the favor is kumbaga yung pera na binigay sa'yo, ang iisipin mo, okay, hindi ka pwedeng tumanggi kasi nabigyan ka na ng pera, nakatanggap ka ng pera. So, kung ano yung sinabi ng, for example, ng mayor, iboto nyo si ganito, so siya yung iboboto nyo. Ganun yung pagkakaintindi ko sa patronage.
So, Assalamualaikum. I am Sharina Aliyah K. Makmol. So, ito po yung continuous ng report ni Miss Imam. Influence refers to the unethical use of power or authority for personal gain. Common refers is tumutukoy sa hindi ethical na paggamit ng kapangyarihan o otoridad para sa pansariling pakinabang. Common graft in the context of corruption refers to the accusation of found of property. Sa konteksto ng katiwalian ay tumutukoy sa akusasyon ng mga pondo ng pagtapon ng ari-arian or pagbigay ng pondo sa mga tao na hindi dumadaan sa legal process. The electoral fraud sometimes refers to the as election manipulation. Voter fraud involves illegal interference with the process of an election. Kickback is a special form of bribe that give a person in power cut of income for organization. Embezzlement is the theft of entrusted fund. It is a political when it involves public money taken by a public official for use by anyone. So, ito po yung ginagamit, kumbaga parang ginagamit niya yung pera ng government para sa pansariling interest niya. So, ginagamit niya sa mga personal needs niya, ganun. Then, unholy alliance is generally some influential non-government group forming ties with political parties. And that's all.
So, good day everyone. So, my name is Erika Ayari. So, my topic for today is about laws that promote good governance. So, let's start. So, good governance. So, good governance in the Philippines is government has implemented affirmative actions to combat corruption, including the Procurement Act, lifestyle checks, and the Interagency Anti-Corruption Committee. Despite this effort, corruption remains pervasive. The country has numerous laws dating back to 1965, including the revised Penal Code of 1960 and the 1987 Constitution. So let's talk about good governance in the Philippines. The government has been taking some steps to fight corruption, like the Procurement Act, doing lifestyle checks, and setting up the Interagency Anti-Corruption Committee. But even with all these things in place, corruption is still a big problem in Philippines. So I mean, there are so many laws dating back to as easily as 1955, like revised Penal Code of 1960 and the 1987 Constitution. It's like we got all these rules, but somehow corruption still finds a way to stick around. We're definitely got some work to do in the fight against corruption, that's for sure.
From 1946 to 1971, the Republic Acts 1379 to 1955 and 1319, 1960, and 60 to 28, 1969 is to aim to protect the state from unlawful acquisition of property, repress graft and corruption practices, and promote efficiency and justice in law administration, creating the Citizen Councilor Office. So, nung yung Republic Act 1319 at 1379, ang Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act ay isang batas na nagsasaad na dapat supliin ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas ang ilang mga gawain ng opisyal ng publiko at ng mga natural na tao na maaaring maging sanhi ng korupsyon. Ang Republic Act 1319 at 1379 ay kilala bilang for future law na nagpapahintulot sa pamahalaan na kunin ang mga ari-arian na illegal na nakuha ng mga pampublikong opisyal. So from 1972 to 1986, several decrees were issued in the Philippines amending rules on discipline, punishing gift, granting immunity from prosecution to bribe givers, and establish the Civil Service Commission, and revising the PD 1486 to create the Sandigan Bayan Court, the main anti-graft court which only handles cases against the high-ranking government officials. So mula noong 1972 to 1986, ilang mga kautusan ang inilabas sa Pilipinas para mag-amyenda sa mga tuntunin sa disiplina at pagpaparusa sa mga regalo na pagbibigay ng kaligtasan din mula sa pag-imbestiga sa mga sumuhol sa mga naglalabag sa batas na ito. At kasabwat ang pagtatag ng Civil Service Commission at pagrebisa sa PD 1486 upang lumikha ng Sandigan Bayan Court. Itong court lamang din ang pangunahing anti-graft court na umahawak lamang ng mga kaso laban sa mga matataas na opisyal ng gobyerno. So that's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, and especially to you, ma'am. 1987 presents Whistleblower Protection Laws Safeguard Individuals who reported wrongdoing or corruption retaliation. Number 1. Anti-corruption laws. Many countries have implemented comprehensive and anti-corruption laws to combat graft and corruption. These laws often establish anti-corruption agencies, define corrupt practices, and prescribe penalties for offenders. Examples include the United States Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA, the UK Bribery Act, and the Philippines Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practice Act. Number 2. Freedom of Information Laws. Freedom of Information Laws, or FOI, laws grant individuals the right to access governments by promoting transparency and accountability. FOI laws help prevent corruption and promote good governance. Example include the Freedom of Information Act in the United States and the Right to Information Act in India. Number 3. Conflict of interest laws. Conflict of interest laws require public officials to disclose and manage any conflicts between their personal interests and their official duties. These laws help prevent corruption by ensuring that public officials act in the Philippines' public best interests rather than their own. Examples include in the Ethics in Government Act in the United States and various codes of conduct for public officials worldwide.
Good morning. Our topic for today is about the issues and challenges on governance. The lesson 4 of issues and challenges on governance presents the reforms, initiatives, and solutions of these challenges are also discussed. Corruption is becoming global. Okay, why corruption is becoming global? Corruption is becoming global due to the increased interconnectedness brought by globalization, which allows corrupt practices to spread across borders. Weak governance and institutions, economic inequality, technological advancements that can conceal corrupt activities, and international crime networks contribute to this issue. In addition, political instability, cultural factors normalizing corruption, complex global financial systems, regulatory arbitrage, and enforcement challenges further exacerbate the problem. Isa na rito yung global business interconnectedness. As business operates internationally, they encounter different regulatory environments, some of which may be more susceptible to corruption. This allow corrupt practices to spread across borders, no? Habang yung mga negosyo nila ay lumalawak sa ibang bansa, may nakakasalubong sila na iba't ibang uri ng regulation, no, na madaling mapasukan ng corruption. Dahil dito lumalaganap yung mga maling gawain sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. Next is the weak governance. Many countries lack robust legal and regulatory frameworks, making it easier to corrupt activities to flourish without detection or punishment. Yung maraming sa bansa ang walang matatag na mga batas, no? Kaya madaling lumaganap yung mga gawain ng corrupt na hindi sila nahuhuli or na napaparusahan. Diba? Ang hirap-hirap naman yun kasi marami kang mga kalaban eh. Then the next is technological and financial exploitation. Advances in technology and complex global financial systems provide new methods for concealing corrupt activities, such as through offshore accounts and shell companies. Ang mga makabagong teknolohiya at komplikadong pandaigdigang sistema ng pananalapi ay nagbibigay ng bagong paraan upang maitago ang mga korap na gawain, tulad ng paggamit ng mga offshore accounts at shell companies. And then sa next is international crime networks. Transnational organized crime groups often engage in corrupt practices, leveraging global connections to facilitate illegal activities and evade enforcement. Yung mga organisadong grupo ng krimen ay madalas na sangkot sa mga korap na gawain. no? Like the Pogo. Ginagamit ang kanilang mga pandaigdigang koneksyon upang mapadali ang mga illegal na aktibidad at makakaiwas sa batas. Gaya na lang yung sa hot issue ngayon, no? Yung about sa Pogo. Ganun mga grupong mga puro krimen ang puro mga illegal ang ginagawa. Okay. Then anti-corruption efforts also require a global action. The United Nations Convention Against Anti-Corruption, or the UNLAC, is being pushed for ratification by UN member states 12. Yung last 2006, no, ni Dimitri Vlasis, nag-discuss siya sa UNLAC ng mga highlight niya about sa kanyang 4 elements about sa anti-corruption, which is the prevention, criminalization, and international cooperation, at saka number 4 is yung asset recovery. Prevention, corruption can be prosecuted after the fact, but first and foremost, it requires prevention. An entire chapter of the convention is dedicated to prevention with measures directed at both the public and private sectors. No? Kailangan talaga mag-prevent pa lang sa una yung mga corrupt. Next is criminalization. The convention requires countries to establish criminal and other offenses to cover a wide range of acts of corruption if these are not already crimes under domestic law. In some cases, states are legally obliged to establish offenses in other cases in order to take into the account differences in domestic law. They are required to consider doing so. Okay? Kailangan magkaroon tayo ng mga offenses, or acts about sa corruption. Number 3, sa international cooperation, countries agreed to cooperate with one another in every aspect of the fight against corruption, including prevention, investigation, and the prosecution of offenders. And the next is the asset recovery. In a major breakthrough, countries agreed on asset recovery, which is stated explicitly as a fundamental principle of the convention. Number 2, sa issues in public fiscal management. Another issue on good governance is on public fiscal management. Prior to government reform, programs, there were weakness and constraint in fiscal management, especially in the budgeting processes. Some of these constraints are still lingering. We have the 2 major causes of decline include the tax evasion and weakness, and the next the private, corporate, and banking sectors, which are major contributors to the national coffers, were weighed down by non-performing assets. Ang explanation ko lang about sa public fiscal management na before reform, public fiscal management faced issues such inefficient budget allocation, lack of transparency, and poor financial oversight. These weaknesses led to misallocation of resources, corruptions, and reduced public trust. Government reforms aim to improve these processes by implementing stricter budgeting practices, increasing transparency, and enhancing accountability to ensure better use of public funds. Then sa 3 is deficiencies in the political and electoral system. Public confidence in election outcomes is low because of widely alleged irregularities in the Philippine electoral processes. The modernization of electoral system in the country today is an attempt to enhance public confidence in election outcomes and address traditional election anomalies such as cheating, intimidation, and bribery. The government has initiated the concrete efforts to institutionalize electoral reforms through the passage of laws on election modernization. No, meron siyang Republic Act 8436, or which is the Election Modernization Act, party list system, and the absentee voting for overseas Filipino workers. No, then ang democratic and effective political electoral system is important, no, kasi to ensure that development agenda primarily addressing the needs of poor and disadvantaged is promoted and sustained beyond administrators. Then, the civil society organizations are currently working with their government counterparts of pending reform bills in Congress that also seek to address issues on political dynasties that continue practice of party turnquotism and diminution of the electoral processes into mere contest of personalities. And that's all for today. Thank you.